Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about life expectancy, suicide, and drug overdoses. But before we do that, please go ahead and bookmark theconsciousresistance.com to make sure you get all of our latest content. And as usual, go down here to subscribe to our email newsletter. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on what we're doing, and you don't want to do that because we're trying to keep you informed. So, a report came out recently in early December, late November, discussing mortality in the United States from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. You know, the CDC, that great institution that we trust in so many other areas. But in this area, the details they release are kind of interesting and telling about just American life. It says for the second year in a row, life expectancy for the U.S. population has declined to 78.6 years. This age-adjusted death rate increased by 0.4% from 728 deaths per 100,000 standard population to 731. The 10 leading causes of death remain the same as 2016. So that's one aspect. Apparently in the United States, we're seeing a decrease in life expectancy. And this has been reported on by U.S. News World Report and others. Life expectancy falls, but then what we also notice is that drug overdoses and suicides are on the rise. So this is kind of interesting. The number of years Americans are expected to live has trended downward since 2014. In the United States, between 2016 and 2017, life expectancy fell, fueled by increasing drug overdoses and suicides and continuing a declining trend since 2014. So going on 4 years, this trend has been declining. As I said, 78.6 years is the average lifespan of American. It marks the decline of 0.3 of a year from the peak of American life expectancy at 78.9 years in 2014. So obviously this is just an average here that they're taking, but I think it does bring some interesting questions about not only the United States but the world at large, but definitely the United States, which has been, there's a lot of factors in this. You have to start looking at the fact the United States has been this superpower for decades now around the world, and has been involved in wars, and those wars get people coming home with PTSD, and those people on PTSD go take psychotropic drugs or pharmaceuticals, and some of those people commit suicide. Obviously that's not all of these drug overdoses and all of these suicides, but you know, you think about those circumstances. Another part of the ongoing war on terror and sending people to go fight in other places in the world, especially places like Afghanistan, where we've seen an increase in opium and the poppy fields being guarded by soldiers. And then since then, what have we had since Afghanistan, since 9/11? We've had this explosion of heroin overdoses, people getting addicted to heroin, opium, and synthetics like fentanyl and others that the pharmaceutical industry is putting out there. And so we're seeing this rise in drug overdoses across America for one reason or another, suicides, and we can speculate, depending on which rabbit hole you want to go and where you want to place the blame. There could be a lot of different reasons. Maybe this could be connected to 5G, right? Some would argue. Maybe this is just connected to economic status. This report also says that low-income, less educated black people in the South have the shortest lifespans, and I think that's probably been traditionally the case, is that minorities and poor people suffer the most. So minorities, poor people continuing to be at the bottom of the spectrum, but on a whole, life expectancy in the United States is declining. Now, we'll have to wait maybe a little longer than this, maybe in the coming years, until we get, say, a decade's worth of research and we can see a trend going downwards in the United States and ask some hard questions about this. But one of the reasons this story caught my eye, because this is not like the most huge pressing matter at the moment, right? But the reason this caught my eye is because as somebody who has both been addicted to drugs and attempted suicide, I do think that we have to take a moment to look at some of the deeper issues here. And the fact is that what I'm witnessing, what I believe we're witnessing is, you know, like many of you have said before, there's a spiritual battle going on as well. And so there are a lot of people who, at the heart of it, what we talk about the conscious resistance, the philosophy, the website, the channel, is the fact that in order to really overcome the crazy situations we are seeing in the world, we have to deal with our own personal internal trauma, what I call our internal tyrant, as well as our doubts, fears, and insecurities, and you know, all of that stuff. It has to come, if not first, at least at the same time as you're going out there and confronting the physical manifestations of power. I would suggest spending some time working on yourself and ongoing working on yourself. And of course, this is a journey for all of us, right? It's not like you just, well, I spent 2 weeks at a retreat working on myself, now everything's figured out. Some people would like to tell you that. Or, hey, let's just take this drug and you'll feel better, or whatever it may be to distract you. But my point is that this is an issue that is close to my heart. As also, some of you may remember that I reported earlier this summer, my birth father died of a drug overdose back in June. So, you know, I've been in and around drugs, and I've been depressed and tried to harm myself lots throughout my life. And I have, on my tours and in my speaking, I've come across people who say the same thing, say that they've gone down those rabbit holes. It seems like there are quite a few of us who are waking up to the status of the world and questioning things around us, who've also had drug addiction and depression problems and just struggles in different ways. Sometimes people come up to me and say, I never touched a drug in my life, but I can relate to your struggle because I did this, or I went through this experience. And that's great. I love that because it helps me see that we're all connected through our struggles, even when they're different, even when we have completely different backgrounds. You might think, this person looks nothing like me. We're so different. There's no way we could have any connection. And then you come realize that we're all overcoming struggles in a variety of ways, and they manifest themselves in different ways, and they look different. Sometimes people turn to drugs to deal with their problems. Sometimes people turn to self-harm, and eventually they decide they'd rather just leave this planet than be here. And as somebody who has tried to kill himself several times and is now thankful I did not, I just want to be able to reach anybody I can. And I've mentioned this before, I think in the video about my dad, and I've talked to some people about this on tour, that I do have the intention of this coming year to focus more of my energies on how we can support each other, those who are recovering from drug addiction and depression and abuse and abusive relationships and all kinds of different traumas, that we need support systems, we need help. And it's up to us to do that, because the system, the state, and these pharmaceutical industries that they're partnered with, all they're going to offer you is their drugs and methods that I don't think really get to the root of the problem, which is the fact that the reason that I'd say that more and more people in the United States apparently are dying from drug overdoses and killing themselves is because there's so much trauma going on in the world that these are the ways people are choosing to process and deal with these heavy emotions. And this is a trend that will probably increase unless we learn to either stop getting ourselves in these situations in the first place, which is kind of difficult when the people in charge, the leaders as we are told to refer to them, continue to put us in situations that create more and more trauma, not just for us here in the United States, but think about the trauma over generations throughout the human species, from slavery, from the treatment of women throughout history, from indigenous abuse, from just the abuse to the planet itself. All of that is collectively inside each of us, and according to epigenetics, down to the genetic level. And that trauma is surfacing now in the form of drug overdoses and suicides, which is contributing to a lower life expectancy. And unless we choose to do something about it, it's not going to stop. So let me know what you think below, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments and thoughts on this subject: drug overdose, addiction, suicides. Why is the life expectancy falling? Let me know what you think. Where do you point the finger at? Who do you blame for this life expectancy dropping? I know some would say, hey, vaccines, or others would say maybe it's the fluoride in the water. Others would say maybe it's the poison in the food or the air or the spraying. I mean, there's just, the fact of the matter is there's so many different sources for health problems that it's up to us to really get our health in control and take care of our lives. All right, guys, I'm done for the day. Thank you for listening. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. We'll see you soon.